Good morning, everyone. A little more boisterous crowd out there this morning. Good morning. I'd ask that you join us in the Pledge of Allegiance this morning.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first matter on this morning's agenda is the approval of the minutes from the August 21st meeting. It's a pleasure to recognize Vice Chairman Coleman as editor of the minutes. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. I have reviewed the minutes of our August 21st, 2014 public meeting, and I move that they be approved as submitted.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the minutes are approved as submitted, and it's a pleasure to welcome to the podium this morning to commence with our public meeting agenda items, Ms. Cheryl Walker-Davis. Good morning, Cheryl. And Cheryl, for the record, I have worn my pink tie in recognition of Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Excellent.
And Secretary Phillips, I hope she's listening here this morning. I honored her request.
Excellent. And I do have to notice that Vice Chairman Coleman has on my favorite green tie as well.
Thank you for noticing.
May I go home and change?
It all depends on how you vote today. So.
May it please this honorable commission, on behalf of your various offices and bureaus, we present for your consideration and disposition the following agenda items, commencing this morning with matters on behalf of the Bureau of Consumer Services. It is recommended that the commission adopt the recommendation appearing on page 1 with regard to the tentative order involving the Universal Service and Energy Conservation Plan of UGI Utilities, Inc.'s Gas Division, noting the statement of Commissioner Cawley.
So moved.
Second.
I'd like to recognize Commissioner Cawley for purposes of his statement. Commissioner Cawley.
Thank you, Chairman. Rather than reading it, I simply ask that it be placed in the record as if I had read it in its entirety. Well, enough. That's fine. Thank you.
So noted. Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously, noting for the record Commissioner Cawley's statement.
On page 2 of the public meeting agenda, with regard to matters presented on behalf of the Office of Competitive Market Oversight, it is recommended that the commission adopt the recommendation to adopt the proposed final order, which clarifies the timing of contract expiration and renewal notices issued to customers receiving competitive retail electric and retail natural gas service from the same supplier.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
Turning now to matters presented on behalf of the Office of Special Assistance, it is recommended in omnibus fashion that the commission adopt the items appearing on pages 3, 4, except the last item, that being Teresa Brown Albert versus PPL Electric Utilities Corporation, which has been postponed. The omnibus continues with all items appearing on pages 5 through and including the first item at the top of page 6, that being Bonnie Roberts versus Natural Fuel Gas Distribution Corporation.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
Turning now to the Sunoco pipeline matter and the amended petitions requesting the commission to find certain structures sheltering pump stations and valve control stations to be exempt from local zoning ordinances. There's the joint motion of Vice Chairman Coleman and Commissioner Whitmer, as well as the statements of Commissioners Brown and Cawley.
I'd like to recognize Vice Chairman for purposes of the joint motion. Vice Chairman Coleman.
Thank you, Chairman. And Commissioner Whitmer and I ask that our joint motion be entered into the record as though we had read it in its entirety. Before the Commission today is the initial decision disposing of various preliminary objections regarding Sunoco Pipeline LP's numerous requests for zoning exemptions pursuant to Section 619 of the Municipal Planning Code. Also before the Commission are the exemptions, the replies, and the exceptions to the initial decision filed by the parties in this case. After a thorough review of the various pleadings, the initial decisions, the exceptions and replies, the relevant commission orders, we conclude that the commission has subject matter jurisdiction over Sunoco's zoning exceptions request based on prima facie evidence that Sunoco is a public utility. The preliminary objection standard requires us to view the facts in the light that is most favorable to Sunoco. We note that Sunoco has been certificated as a public utility in Pennsylvania for many years, and the existence of the Commission's orders granting the certificate of public convenience to Sunoco is prima facie evidence that Sunoco is a public utility under the Public Utility Code. We also conclude that it is appropriate to dismiss the remaining preliminary objections, the merits of which were not addressed below. To grant the preliminary objection, the requested relief must be clearly warranted and free from doubt, and the moving party must be entitled to judgment as a matter of law. With this standard in mind, and based on the review of the same material mentioned above, we believe the requested relief with the remaining preliminary objections is not clearly warranted. In short, we see no reasonable basis upon which the preliminary objections on subject matter jurisdiction and the remaining preliminary objections can be granted. Therefore, we move to deny all preliminary objections, to reverse the initial decision, and to remand Sunoco's amended petition to the Office of the Administrative Law Judge for further proceedings consistent with this joint motion. Upon review of various pleadings, we also believe that there are numerous and serious misconceptions in the case regarding Sunoco's regulatory history with the Commission and the specific issues that need to be disposed of in this proceeding with regard to Sunoco's relief requested. Therefore, in addition to resolving the preliminary objections, the joint motion also seeks to clarify these issues. Procedurally, we note that in this case, that this case is at the preliminary objection stage. Hence, we are not ruling on the merits of Sunoco's underlying zoning exemption request under Section 619 of the Municipal Planning Code. That the underlying issue on remand, which raises a very narrow question to be addressed, is whether the walls and roof to be built around and over the valve control or pump station should be exempt from municipal planning regulations. To answer this question, we must decide whether it is in the convenience or welfare of the public for Sunoco to enclose the planned facilities with walls and roofs, even if the enclosures may conflict with local zoning ordinances. Finally, we want to clarify that Sunoco is first not seeking a certificate of public convenience, nor are they asking for authorization to build the Mariner East pipeline or any facility attendant thereto, such as the valve control or pump stations, nor are they seeking approval of the siting or the routing of the pipeline, nor are they asking a finding that the proposed pipeline complies with relevant public safety or environmental requirements. Those issues are outside the scope of this proceeding and will not be addressed as part of the remand on the zoning exemption request. Therefore, we move that the initial decision of Administrative Law Judge Salapa and Barnes be reversed consistent with this motion. The exceptions and reply to exceptions are granted in part and denied in part consistent with this motion. The preliminary objections filed by the various parties are denied consistent with this motion. This matter is remanded to the Office of the Administrative Law Judge for further proceedings consistent with this motion. And finally, the Office of Special Assistants draft an appropriate order consistent with this motion.
Second. Now I'd like to recognize Commissioner Brown for purposes of her statement. Commissioner Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am voting to support part of the motion to reverse the ALJ's grant of the preliminary objection dismissing Sunoco's petitions for lack of Commission jurisdiction. The preliminary objection should not have been granted because, contrary to case law, relief is not clearly warranted and free from doubt. With regard to the remaining preliminary objections filed in this manner, I note that the ALJ has not yet ruled on their merits. Section 5.101G of the Commission's regulations requires that these objections should also be remanded back to the ALJs for consideration. Although Section 1.2C of our regulations provides that the Commission may waive regulations such as the requirement that the ALJs rule on the preliminary objections, such waiver should only occur when necessary or appropriate, and if it does not adversarially affect a substantive right of a party. I believe that the substantive rights of the parties are implicated in this matter, and dismissal of the remaining preliminary objections by the commission without consideration by the ALJs is tantamount to a violation of the parties' due process rights. For this reason, I will partially dissent on the motion because of the handling of these other preliminary objections. And for the record, I will just submit my full comments for the record.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Now I'd like to recognize Commissioner Cawley.
Thank you, Chairman. I wish to associate myself with Commissioner Brown's statement and make it clear up front that I agree with the motion to the extent that it finds that the commission does have jurisdiction to entertain these petitions. It is, I think, beyond dispute that Sunoco holds certificates from this commission which were granted by us in proceedings that were unopposed. That being so, certificates of public convenience are prima facie evidence of the rights of a public utility. That having been said, that dealt with only one of 9 preliminary objections. And I must respectfully dissent from the summary dismissal of the several other preliminary objections that were not addressed by the administrative law judges, because the judges found that the commission lacked jurisdiction over Sunoco's petitions. Based on principles of fairness and efficiency, the correct procedure when an administrative agency presiding officer sustains a preliminary objection to the agency's jurisdiction and therefore does not address other preliminary objections made, and then is reversed by the heads of the agency, which we do today, is to remand the case to the presiding officer to address the remaining unaddressed preliminary objections. That, in fact, is the practice, has been the practice of this agency, and it is the practice of civil trial courts in Pennsylvania whose procedures regarding the disposition of preliminary objections have been mirrored by this commission and its regulations. And therefore, as Commissioner Brown noted, our rules of practice and procedure provide that in the first instance, and certainly I think on remand, an administrative law judge is to deal with the preliminary objections. And then we get to review them, as we do today. Here, however, instead of remanding the unaddressed preliminary objections to the administrative law judges for disposition, this motion summarily dismisses them as either beyond the scope of this proceeding or invalid because Sunoco pled sufficient facts in its petitions to avoid a claim of lack of specificity. I believe that given the lack of any factual record and the paucity of relevant facts produced in Sunoco's various petitions, the Commission itself is in no position to make summary rulings on the objecting parties' claims of legal or factual insufficiency. And therefore, I believe that since we got one of the 9 preliminary objections correct, the fact that we are not dealing adequately with the other 8 leads to me to believe that I must, again, respectfully, fully dissent from the disposition that we make of these preliminary objections today. And I ask that the remainder of my written statement be placed in the record as if I had read all of it.
Thank you, Commissioner Cawley. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Whitmer,
may I please make a verbal statement?
please.
Thank you. I think that it's very important that we make a clarification today on what has occurred. It is accurate that the presiding ALJs did not rule on all of the preliminary objections filed by the parties. But by our regulations, the preliminary objections are to be ruled upon within 30 days by the presiding officer. Sunoco asserted in its exceptions that the initial decision was an error for not addressing all the preliminary objections, which they argue are without merit or are moot for a variety of reasons. Additionally, the Delaware River Network filed reply exceptions, also asking the Commission to rule in its favor on the preliminary objections it had filed, but which were not addressed by the presiding ALJs. The parties have had multiple opportunities to be heard should they have chosen to exercise their right, however, they did not. At this juncture, it is appropriate for the Commission to make a decision on those preliminary objections before us. By law, the Commission is directed to rule on the preliminary objections within 90 days. The Vice Chairman's and my joint motion is addressing our clear statutory requirements regarding these preliminary objections. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitmer. Hearing no further discussion, we'll call the vote. It's a 4-1 vote, noting the dissent of Commissioner Cawley, and for the record, we'll note the statements of Commissioner Brown as well.
Continuing with the presentation of public meeting agenda items, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the recommendation in the interconnection agreement proceeding involving Windstream Pennsylvania LLC and Service Electric Telephone Company, appearing at the bottom of page 6, as well as both items on page 7 through and including the recommendation in the interconnection agreement proceeding involving Verizon North LLC and Guidance Telecom LLC.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
Turning now to matters on behalf of the Bureau of Technical Utility Services, we recommend in omnibus fashion that the Commission adopt all items, commencing with the recommendation in Energy Cooperative Association of Philadelphia, DBA the Energy Co-op, at the top of page 8, and continuing with all items on pages 8, 9, 10, except the Constructure Technologies LLC application proceeding, which has been postponed until the next public meeting. The omnibus continues with the remaining items on page 10, as well as the items on pages 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, through and including the 911 system renewal plan received on behalf of the County of Lebanon at the bottom of page 16.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion on any of these cases?
Chairman, on page 15 at the top regarding Block Line Systems LLC, I wish to concur in the result only.
Okay.
Commissioner Cawley, I don't think your microphone was on. We didn't hear you.
Sorry, let me
Thank
say
you.
that again. On the top of page 15, Block Line Systems LLC, I wish to be recorded as concurring in the result only.
So noted. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all motions pass unanimously.
Turning now to matters presented on behalf of the Law Bureau, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the items commencing with the NEP Cellcore Inc. recommendation at the top of page 17, continuing with the remaining item on page 17, as well as the recommendation in the proceeding involving the delegation of the authority regarding uncontested motor carrier applications, appearing on page 18.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
That concludes the presentation of regular agenda items. Turning now to the carry-in agenda, it is recommended on behalf of the Office of Special Assistance that the Commission adopt both items appearing on the carry-in agenda through and including the Three Rivers Limousine Service, Inc. matter.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
And that does conclude the presentation of agenda items, Mr. Chairman.
Before we adjourn, we have two quick announcements. I first want to recognize Commissioner Whitmer for a recognition of National Cyber Security Awareness Month. But before I do that, I just want to congratulate her. She's taken a very active role both nationally and here in the Mid-Atlantic region, coordinating our MAC group. I almost called it Tri-State. It's bigger than the Tri-State. We actually included the Buckeye State more recently. But Commissioner Whitmer has done a tremendous job collaborating efforts around cybersecurity, bringing multiple stakeholders to the table. And I'm really proud not only to associate myself with what she's doing, but I think it's a recognition of the work that this commission has done on big issues like cybersecurity. So Commissioner Whitmer, I'm going to turn it over to you with that great introduction.
Wow, I think I should just stop. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to offer a statement on recognizing National Cybersecurity Month. Along with Governor Corbett, we are, as I said, recognizing October as National Cybersecurity Month. This month is dedicated to educate the public about the importance of adopting and implementing proper cybersecurity practices. Over the last 2 years, the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission has done just that by educating ourselves and the companies we regulate on this vitally important issue. To mark the occasion today, the Commission is releasing cybersecurity best practices for small and medium-sized Pennsylvania utilities. The guide is filled with tips and resources to help smaller utilities from all industry sectors take the initial basic steps toward protecting themselves from and responding to cyber intrusions. However, the guide is just one in a series of actions we've taken on the issues. Almost 2 years ago, as Chairman Powelson noted, and really through his lead, and now under the leadership of my office, we helped to organize a Mid-Atlantic collaborative with other state commissions in order to share information and discuss best practices on cybersecurity. We've convened training and roundtables for Pennsylvania utilities to share practices and threat information. We have worked with counterparts in other state agencies to ensure greater coordination in how we address and respond to cybersecurity threats. We have also worked with several federal agencies, including the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, on education and exercises with the private sector. I'm pleased to say that throughout the Commonwealth, we have found that many of our utilities across all the various industry sectors have worked diligently to confront the myriad of cybersecurity issues and the ever-changing threat environment. I commend our utilities for these efforts, as well as their willingness to be partners in educating the Commission and each other about cybersecurity issues. Two agencies in particular, Governor Corbett's Office of Homeland Security and FERC's Office of Energy Infrastructure Security, have helped broadly advance the Commission's knowledge base and the cybersecurity profile of Pennsylvania's utility industry. While we are proud of the accomplishments that we've achieved to date, this is an ever-changing issue which demands constant education and vigilance. From the shell shock bash bug to the massive Home Depot hack, cybersecurity intrusions are real, too close to home, and too frequent and devastating to companies and individuals alike. As every aspect of life and business become more dependent on digital solutions, cybersecurity and its interplay with physical security become even more critical within the utility industry. So today, as we mark National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, I thank the industry for their work and implementation measures on the issue, but also caution that we must all continue to be vigilant and improve our efforts to prevent, detect, and respond to cyber intrusions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitmer. And we have another special recognition. This is more on the anniversary front, but it's almost hard to believe that today is the first-year anniversary of then Commissioner, now one-year Commissioner, Gladys Brown. And let me just say, I look out and I see her staff here. You know, Gladys Brown, many of us work with, I was joking with her yesterday in R&R when she was on the other side. Now she's come to the real good side. Not to say the other side was bad. And I said, is it any different than you thought? And she said, no, it's pretty, you know, it's what I expected. But let me just say, I look out, I see her staff, very dedicated, professional staff, and we're all blessed to have great staff around us. But more importantly, we, the four of us, are blessed to have you here, the voice of reason. You can give us a little bit of grounding at times on legislative matters, which is always important. I think your legislative Rolodex speaks for itself. And today, I think we all join in celebrating your many accomplishments in less than 1 year's time as a commissioner. And with that, Commissioner Brown, I want to recognize you for some remarks here this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did want to take this opportunity because I think it was timed very well in terms of this is my first year. And to have a public meeting on the actual day that you were confirmed or sworn in is very unique for me. But I did want to take the opportunity to thank my colleagues. They have been very, very helpful to me in transitioning me from my legislative role to over here. And I know that Commissioner Whitmer was the very first one to walk over the day after I was nominated by Governor Corbett to welcome me and to give me some words of wisdom and advice. And if you notice, her and I are the only two that are wearing pink shirts here today. I know the chairman has his tie on. But I also wanted to thank the staff that is here in the commission. I know working on legislative issues, utility issues, how important the PUC staff has always been to the legislative staff. I knew that then, and I know that now. And I just wanted to thank them for taking the time to answer all my many, many questions or answer, well, why do we do it this way or why do we do it that way? You've been so helpful to me, and I've been traveling this winter with communications staff, and they've been helpful to me as well. Well, we've been trying to address some of the community concerns. I also wanted to just thank my staff. I've said to them over this course of 1 year, I know you guys have to get used to me, and I think I can say after 1 year, they're finally used to me. But I do want to thank them for all their hard work because they have been great. And I just want to say once again, I want to take the opportunity to thank my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. And again, we congratulate you on your 1 year anniversary, and I hope we're all around for your 11-year anniversary and your. With that, we have no further items to come before public meeting here this morning. And on that note, we are adjourned.